I'm Maren Callahan, 31, raised on 400 acres of Midwest soil. I knew every fence post, every creek bend, every shift in the wind, and apparently, none of that mattered. The letter came on a Monday, white envelope, family logo in the corner, no handwritten note, just a typed page. Due to operational restructuring, your name has been removed from the family deed and ownership rights. No explanation, no phone call, no warning. Just like that, I was no longer a Callahan, at least not on paper. They said I left the land. Because I went to college, because I studied landscape design, because I came back talking about pollinators, water tables, and sustainable crop rotation. My father didn't even look up when he said, "We grow soybeans, Maren, not wildflowers." My brothers didn't say a word. Neither did my mother. The next morning, my toolbox was waiting for me on the back porch, packed, sealed, like I was a guest whose time had run out. I didn't fight, didn't cry, just nodded once, and walked off their land, but not before placing one thing in my truck, a rolled-up blueprint, hand-sketched when I was 16, a redesign of the East Field. They called it childish, said it would never work, said I didn't understand real farming. Maybe they were right, but I understood something else. Roots run deeper when no one sees them. That night, I drove west, alone until my phone buzzed. A single text from Eli, the only one who ever asked me what I saw in the dirt when no one else was looking. Wherever you're going, save me a piece of it. I headed south, crossed Kansas at dawn, hit New Mexico by dusk. The land there was cracked, dry, forgotten, but not dead. I rented a trailer behind a feed co-op, worked for food, shoveled compost, mapped runoff lines by hand. No one asked who my family was, only if I could dig, if I could hold a shovel straight, if I'd stay through the summer. I stayed 3 years, and then one morning, he showed up. Eli, older, dustier, same eyes. He was building water catchment basins for a reservation up north. Heard I was the girl who made the desert bloom. Said he figured that had to be me. We didn't talk about the farm. He didn't ask why I left. I didn't ask why he stayed behind. But we worked. Quietly, efficiently. He handled the tanks and trenches. I handled the land and layout. And when the first patch of green showed up, on that dead ridge no one believed in, he handed me a bottle of water and said, "You were always better at staying than they were at seeing." I said nothing, but I kept the bottle. That season, we planted native grasses across 4 acres. That fall, we took on a drought rescue contract in Texas. That winter, we named the company Rewild. No investors, no offices, no logos. Just dirt, data, and maps. I kept my last name off everything. He never questioned it. By the time I turned 30, we'd restored 600 acres across 4 states. And then, I saw the listing, East Acre, my old design. Foreclosed, tax delinquent, auction next month. I sent one email. Eli didn't even read it. He just said, "Let's go get your land back." We bought East Acre at county auction. $43,000 cash, no questions asked. Eli signed the papers. I stood outside. Watched the clerk stamp the deed. It was done. I didn't tell anyone, not the family, not the neighbors, just drove there one morning. Boots in dew, cold air, no noise. The old fence still lined west. The soil was bare, the well was sealed, but I remembered every corner, every curve, every spot they told me would never grow. We planted cover crops first, fixed the drainage slope, cut a swale line behind the ridge, where the water used to run before they broke it. No one noticed. While they chased yields, we chased balance and results. 1 year in, the land spoke back. Earthworms, wild rye honeybees. We didn't post photos, we didn't call press. We built. Slow, careful, undeniable. Next came the orchard. 2 lots west. Owned by a retired couple who wanted out. Sold to Rewild Holdings. They never asked who was behind the name. After that, the access road. Then the pasture runoff line. Then the irrigation feed. Eli ran the logistics. I ran the map. We never used our real names. We didn't need to. 5 companies, 8 trusts, 1 network. By the time I turned 32, we held quiet title to every piece of land touching the Callahan farm. Except one, the house, and even that, stood on ground surrounded by ours, 1 entry road, 1 water line. Both ran through what we now owned. They hadn't noticed, not yet, but the land had, and it was waiting. They planned the spring gathering like always, Easter weekend. White tents, roast beef, hand-stitched napkins. They invited donors, local press. Old friends of the Callahan name. They never invited me. Didn't know they'd built their big return on land that no longer belonged to them. Friday, 6:42 p.m. Eli forwarded a motion alert. A security camera caught the first truck at the north gate. Denied, they tried again. Keypad flashed red. Eli zoomed in, Dad in the driver's seat. Pale. Frowning. Next came Ethan, his truck heavier, more confident. Denied. He stepped out, banged the keypad with his palm, looked around for a sensor. None there. They called county maintenance. County forwarded them to private access services. They didn't know. Rewild owned that too. By 9 p.m., 7 cars sat outside the locked gate, windows down, hands waving, guests waiting. Mom stood in heels on gravel, fanning herself, confused, angry. We watched it all. From a distance, Eli had the feed on his laptop. I watched from my phone. We said nothing. By 10:15, a new email arrived. Request for emergency right-of-way access from Callahan Legal. Eli asked if we should respond. I said, not yet. At midnight, the lights on the gate shut off. Solar cut. Someone kicked it. Someone else called the sheriff. No one came. Saturday morning, Eli made coffee. I made a list. Press inquiries, guest refunds, logistics shut down. He slid the coffee across the table, quietly. You okay? I nodded. They'll know soon. He didn't say. Good. He didn't say. They deserve it. Just drank his coffee and waited with me. Monday 9:00 a.m. they came. Dad, Ethan, Uncle John, their lawyer. Mom stayed in the car. They walked into Rewild headquarters. Like they still owned something. They didn't. I watched from behind the glass wall of the conference room. They didn't recognize me at first. I wore black, hair tied back, badge clipped to my belt. They looked for someone in charge. They looked past me until Eli stepped in, nodded toward me, and said, She is. A silence. Then, Dad's face dropped. Mom stepped out of the car, saw me through the window, froze. Ethan blinked, said nothing. I opened the folder, slid it across the table. These are the ownership maps. Updated last quarter. You're surrounded. No one spoke. I turned the next page. This is your water license. The renewal requires landowner consent. Mine. The lawyer started to protest. Eli shut him down with one sentence. All transactions were legal, recorded, verified. Uncle John tried to smile. You've made your point. Now what? I looked up. Now you choose. Dad stiffened. Choose what? Whether you want to learn or leave. They thought I wanted revenge. They thought this was about pride. They were wrong. I handed them a syllabus. 6 months. Sustainable soil, rain harvesting, native crop rotation. If they wanted to farm, they'd have to start over. With me, Ethan looked down. Mom cried, Dad stood. You're humiliating us. I shook my head. I'm offering you what you never gave me. A chance. They left, not all, just the ones who couldn't bend. That evening, I walked alone to East Acre, stood by the old well, the one they capped when I was 17. Said it was dry. I turned the valve. Waited. Water came. Slow, steady. The well still remembered, even if they didn't. 2 months later, Ethan came back. No press, no lawyer, no boots, just him, with a pen and a notebook. He sat in the second row of the regenerative farming seminar we held on East Acre. He took notes, asked questions, stayed after to help pack chairs. Mom wrote once, a letter, handwritten, short. We were wrong. I hope your well never runs dry. I kept the letter in the same box that used to hold their eviction notice. Dad never came, but he stopped contesting the water rights. That was enough. Uncle John sold his last field to a Rewild subsidiary. Eli signed the papers. We didn't celebrate, we just kept planting. Rewild became more than ours. Local schools came, young farmers trained. Researchers tested drought models on our land. The East Acre, the useless patch, now fed 12 counties. In a dry year, we never built fences. We built catchments, shade tunnels, habitat belts. The land responded, so did the people. One morning, Eli stood with me. On the overlook, same ridge where they once told me nothing could grow. He poured coffee into a steel mug, handed it to me, said nothing. We watched the fog roll over the green. He looked down at the map, etched into the valley, said, they'll forget the drama, but they'll remember this. I nodded, because the water table never lies.